Is everybody hearing me okay? Okay. So we're doing the, like you said, we have this week and next week's Palm Sunday, but we'll be doing the Lent booklet. And you're welcome to read it. Honestly, I'm a little different maybe than others. I know Reverend Brian likes to have people follow along. I would rather you just be present with the talk. That would be for me. But with that said, if you want to read through the book, you go for it and enjoy it. So we're going to be talking, as all of the weeks of Lent in the Unity booklet are, about release and imagine. And so the first one we're talking about is scarcity. I actually know this one fairly well because I really haven't done very well financially, and I've kind of lived by this mantra of seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all else shall be added unto you. My wife would say I've done it to a fault, because it's like, well, yeah, but get out there and take a little action there, Brett, you know. So I was doing more of that, and then the last 3 months seemed to present a new opportunity, if you will, a good old opportunity, where I wasn't having much work for the last 3 months. I'm like, I think I gotta go get a real job now, you know, rather than speaking, leading meditation and leading retreats, things like that. So anyhow, but everything I looked for, it's like, it just, I even applied at 4 places, never heard any back from any of them, and I was really well qualified for them. You know, I have a degree, I've spoken for many years, I've taught meditation for many years, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't meant to be. So I kind of surrendered it more and more and just saying, give it over to God and just allow things to unfold as they need to. So Eckhart Tolle talks about the foundation of scarcity is actually gratitude. And what my wife and I sometimes, as a way of staying connected, we like to do eye gazing with each other, where we just sit and we look into each other's eyes. And it can be very scary, but if you're willing to do that, it will bring things to the surface that get in the way of just loving your partner. And it's really such a beautiful process. So some of that came up, and because we've had a lot of things going on, so some of that came up. And we just got into this place where we really were just feeling so grateful. And we forget sometimes how much we truly have in our lives, you know, because 1 or 2 things maybe aren't going our way. But it's like my friend used to say, 90% of your life is great. Why do you focus on the 10% that isn't working, you know? But that's what we do sometimes, right? And so, in any case, so scarcity, the release and to reimagine, to me, one of the greatest ways of doing release is actually becoming mindful of what our thoughts are about not having enough. Because in and of itself, we can have thoughts of scarcity. It's only when we believe them to be true that we identify to say, yeah, I don't have very much. If we buy into that thought, that belief, then guess what? God will say, okay, let me give them this experience of not having enough. And that's what happens. There's nothing bad or wrong with that, but I don't know if it's the way you want to really live. You know, I think we all want to, live in an abundant way. And one of the things the author says in this booklet is that, true abundance is when we're connecting with the source. And, the more I let go of this idea that I'm something less than my oneness with God, I find that everything seems to flow better and better. And so I would offer to you, say, when you become aware of these thoughts that you're falsely identifying with, it says, I don't have enough, then the more you can become aware of them and just say, I got it, let me just release those and let those go. Let this be the cloud passing by. I don't need to buy into these thoughts. And the more you do that, you will naturally have abundance coming your way. Now, the booklet speaks of Reimagine, and that's okay too if you have thoughts or affirmations that you want to, affirm that you are one with the source. That's okay too. For me, I find that the more I release these false beliefs, it just happens. It just life naturally fills that void with what you need, because you've done your work. You've healed the lesson of the fear or pain or whatever that is. So the next one we go into is indecision. And actually, I want to talk about another thing with scarcity. Actually, one of the things we were talking about the monks earlier, and we used to have some monks come in, and they were the Ashaya Ascension meditation is what they taught. It was really a beautiful meditation based on praise, gratitude, love, and that's what you meditated on all the time. And you had tools to do it even during the day: praise, gratitude, love. And so to become an Ashaya monk, what you had to do is you had to be willing to, well, no, I shouldn't say you had to be willing to. It was suggested that you give up all your money. Now, when I first heard this was back in 98, I go, is this a cult? Are they trying to get my money here, or something like that? That's where my mind went. But it was really such a brilliant process, because first of all, they weren't asking that you donate it to their foundation. You were welcome to donate it to anyone. But the idea was that to give it up, and because the monks were meditating for 10, 12 hours a day for 6 months, that was their training. Because they were doing that, it brought up all their stuff to the surface. And so it brought up the stuff like, I don't have any money left. What am I going to do now? So it brought up all those things that we believe we need, or falsely believe that we need, in order to be abundant. And of course, we saw Jesus really didn't have money. He walked the lands, wandered the lands, but he was taken care of in ways that he always needed to be taken care of. So it always worked out. So the next one is indecision. And I find for myself with indecision, the biggest thing is getting in my head, right? We all do that, where we get in our head and we need to figure things out. But anytime, I know we've all lost something, and we only find that when we're willing to just give up and say, I don't know where it's at, I give up, But it's really not giving up. It's really more like surrendering it over to God rather than giving up. And in that surrendering, all of a sudden, we get the clarity that we need. And so if you really want to have clarity from the indecision, it really is so important that we start learning how to quiet the mind. Now, meditation, to me, one of the beautiful things about it is it naturally does it, because when we're meditating and the thoughts come in, and it doesn't matter how many thoughts come in. We have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. So we have plenty of thoughts to deal with. It doesn't matter how busy the mind is. Can you simply stay aware of the thoughts coming in? And when you have the thoughts coming in, come back to the moment, come back to the breath, come back to the mantra, whatever it is that brings you back to this present moment. And that is how one gets clarity. And so there was a teacher that I listened to, Gangaji, and if you haven't heard her before, she's a beautiful, beautiful teacher. She's out of Oregon. One of the things I appreciated what she was saying was that we all want to be happy, right? Everybody, no matter where somebody's at, no matter how cranky or evil or whatever somebody is, everybody wants to be happy. It's hardwired in us. And so in our pursuit for happiness, what we do is we're always trying to get something, or we're trying to get rid of something. We're always trying to, the mind is always trying to do one of those two things. So it's good to be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with it, but it will get your mind very, very busy. And so what she offered is, she mentioned a beautiful exercise, and that is what do you really want out of life? And if you would, just close your eyes just for a moment here. What do you really want out of life? And I would say whatever that first thing that pops up. And be honest. You know, maybe it's a fancy new car, you know, maybe it's a divorce, whatever. I mean, just be honest with what it is. Or, you know, it might be something you're looking for outside of yourself. It might be something you're looking for inside yourself. It's all perfect. Now, my second question is, what do you think you're going to get from that? What do you think what do you think that's going to give you when you get it? And then the last thing is, would you be willing to let go of your search for that thing? What? Why would I want to stop searching for that? And you can open your eyes whenever you're ready. I hope you felt something with that, because for me, like, for a long time, I've just wanted to discover the truth of who I am. And so I was a seeker. Most people in unity are seekers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, doing the seeking might be the very thing that leads us to when we're ready to say, I don't need to seek anymore. I know the truth of who I am. But in the meantime, the reason I offer to give up the search is because in giving up the search, it really quiets the mind down a lot. Because it's only in seeking and trying to get all these things or trying to get rid of something that it gets our mind so incredibly busy. And in that, we have a lot of indecision. We don't know what it's like, because the truth is the mind will seek happiness, but it doesn't really know what it is. Please hear that. That everything the mind wants is something outside of ourselves. When I get this, then I'll be happy. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so by letting go of our search and our seeking for these things that we think we need or want, it really quiets the mind down. And guess what? Life, God, will step up to the plate and give you what you want and need anyhow. Because life is inherently good. But we get in the way with it because we get in our heads and we say, unless I get this thing or unless this works out the way I want, I'm not going to be happy. And it's just not true. So the next thing we go into is self-pity. I've been pretty good at this, actually. A long time ago, my brother and I, we used to canoe the Osable River. We lived up in Oscoda, and if you've ever been up the Osable River, it's just such a beautiful area. So we would canoe that, and we would camp the area as well. And one time when we had finished the canoe trip, and we always kept our sleeping bags and all of our important stuff in trash bags to keep them dry. So in any case, we get to our landing, and next thing I know, my brother is just cussing up a storm. He is so angry. And I'm like, what are you so angry about? You know? And he said, my sleeping bag is soaked. I'm like, oh man, you know. And he was just so frustrated and angry about that. So I'm unpacking the rest of the stuff, and then I hear him just start laughing so hard. He's just heartily laughing. I go, now what are you laughing so hard about? He said, it wasn't my sleeping bag, it was yours. So that was my brother, right? It was all about him, you know. If it worked out for him, he was going to be happy or whatever, you know. But that was really my life. A lot of my life is I felt sorry for myself. And guess what? God gave me this experience to, well, looky here, there's proof that you deserve to be sorry for yourself, you know. And of course, it never worked out. And that happened so much in my life where I had proof that I had the right to feel sorry for myself. Look at my life, you know. So Barb was talking about, or we were talking earlier, and she was just saying how incredibly life has been flowing for her in amazing ways, you know. There is so much change going on in the world. Nobody can deny that, whether it's good or bad or whatever you want to call it. There is a lot of change going on. I was sharing that 3 weeks ago I went to the doctors, And she did an EKG on my heart. I had AFib, so she's like, let's just check things out here. And so anyhow, she comes back in and she's like, so I'm just wondering, do you have your will all up to date, you know? And I'm like, well, no, I don't, you know. And she was talking about all the different other things, you know, not just my heart, because she wasn't a cardiologist, she was a holistic practitioner or medical doctor. So anyhow, but she asked us, and I didn't catch it at first, and then she said, so this EKG, this is kind of interesting. I'm like, oh, what does that mean, you know? And she said, I have concern. And then I pieced it together. She was actually saying, I think you need to get your affairs in order, you know? And it's like, so that happened. And then my mind, because I get, well, not my mind, but I get a lot of songs in my head where Spirit's always guiding me. And they've been playing the song in my head by Bruno Mars, Die With a Smile. And I'm like, okay, so that's happening, you know? And my mind has just really been being inundated with so much. And so I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I was feeling myself going in a little bit of a tailspin, and I'm usually pretty good because I've meditated for a long time. I'm usually aware of my thoughts, and I can deal with them very well. Well, I was, you know, I don't know what was going on, but then on Friday, I'm leaving a friend's house. I'm driving. I'm going down Maple Road about 50 miles an hour. Somebody cuts in front of me, and there's no way I can stop because it just happened just like that, right in front of me. And so now I have a total car. So that happened. And it appears that God is really trying to catch my attention, and has, by the way. So my wife has also been going through a lot of struggles, Laura. And we had a conversation the other day, and she said she was feeling frustrated because she's been working extra hours trying to make things work, and she's just been going through a lot. And then, of course, it affected her with the accident as well. It scared her, and she knows about what's going on in my life and my heart. So she's got that worry going on with her, in addition to the rest of her stuff. And so anyhow, she said, I said, well, I actually think you're doing worse than me. And, you know, and she said, yeah, and that's kind of annoying to me, you know. And I said, oh, why is that? And she said, well, because, you know, it's like, I don't even remember what she said. And I go, you do realize that a doctor just asked me to get my affairs in order, right? And you do realize that, you know, what songs are playing in my head. And you do realize I was just in an accident yesterday too, right? And she said, I'm sorry. She was so caught in her own world that because I flow with things fairly well most of the time, but that flow was feeling annoying to her. You know, it's like, what? You know, look at what I'm going through, you know. So, you know, it's easy to feel sorry for ourselves, but it's also, and I'm so grateful for the Unity community, right? Because we have this attitude of really kind of reflecting how grateful we can be in our lives, you know, and not get caught in this, you know, poor me thing. And I think the other thing is the more we can truly trust and have faith that life is always unfolding exactly as it needs to. And that for me is a saving grace. I don't know about you, but, you know, going through the things that I went through, knowing that everything is exactly the way it needs to be, that brings solace to me, you know? That brings peace to me. And it's meant to, you know, when we really trust and know that we are being taken care of in whatever way we need to be taken care of. And I love that. And sometimes when I'm fighting against the world or fighting against politics or something like that, I remind myself everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to. And that eliminates really the self-pity. It really does. So the last thing is the release of the past. And we all get caught and trapped in the past for sure. And I want to just go to that for just a moment there. So we hear a lot of those thoughts about, wow, I should have done this and I should have done that. And by the way, I don't want to make any thoughts wrong. I don't want to make any thoughts wrong. And I mean that sincerely, like even thoughts of anger or frustration or even hatred. I don't want to make it wrong. And I'm saying that because I know I'm not my thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And if we can treat him that way, then we can welcome in those thoughts of anger. We can welcome in those thoughts of even of hatred. And I know that sounds a bit radical, but the more we can embrace those and say, I don't know why those thoughts or feelings are here right now, but it's for me to look at. And A Course in Miracles says there's only either fear or love, right? And so fear, pain, same thing, fear and pain. So the more we can accept our pain, the more we can accept our fear and embrace it and trust that it's leading us somewhere, that is the way out of our past. It's the way out of getting caught in the drama of life, really. So I think sometimes with the past, it's weird for me to be reading from a script because you guys know me. I don't usually do scripts, so but I appreciate that Reverend Brian is always trying to coordinate and make things flow. So, one of the things about the past is I think we're really tough on ourselves about either not being enough or why did I do this or making mistakes in particular, right? And one of my favorite stories out of the Bible is the prodigal son. Most people know it that way. It's actually the lost son. And Jesus speaks of when the son inherits the father's wealth and asks to get it early. And so the one son said, no, you shouldn't do that. And his father said, yeah, that's fine. And the short moral of the story is the son goes out and he squanders everything he has, and he eventually gets to the point to say, I'm no different than one of my father's servants because I have nothing left, and now I'm forced to work in the fields and earn the money. And he was so humiliated. He was so humbled. But when he came back home, and this is the part I love what Jesus talks about, coming home to the Father, the metaphor behind that. We don't know if it's actually a true story or if it's just a metaphor, and it really doesn't matter. But what the son does is he comes back home to the Father with his head bowed down. And his father is so elated. He's so elated. And the other son's like, how could you be so happy for him? Because he just spent all your money and he has nothing to show for it. I was a dutiful son. I stayed here. And he said, I would happily celebrate you as well, if you want the celebration. But the point was, Jesus is making a point to say, go out there, party, do whatever you need to do. Most of us have already done that. I don't know if you want to do any more of it, but go out there, live life to its fullest, and whatever mistakes you make, it's okay. Come back home when you're ready. We are to a point in the world where there is a massive awakening taking place. I have friends that I've seen walk through it, and it's so beautiful. But life, God is really pouring a lot of things on people right now. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's challenging, but I can say it's all perfect. The more we can flow with that and trust that God is giving exactly what's needed, it's going to continue to open us up to the truth of who we are, because that's all God wants, right? We're here to discover the truth of who we are that we knew as a baby, by the way. You ever hear a baby, I was listening to a story the other day, and the mom says to the little boy, said, Shannon, you need to eat your food. And he said, Shannon's not hungry. He didn't say, I'm not hungry. He said, Shannon's not hungry. Why? Because he didn't identify himself with this person called Shannon. He wasn't identified with his body and with his mind. He was the witness to that. But along the way, we somehow, because we're told you're not good at music, you're good at math, and all these things that we collect along the way, all these beliefs, get us into believing something we're not. And so the invitation that's going on right now in life from God is to let go of all those things that we have falsely believed to be true. And in that's the release when you realize this is not the truth. And the reimagine is, or the reinvention of the truth of who you are, is when you have let go of who you are not, that the truth of who you are is revealed. And that is the truth. It's there for all of us. So my invitation to you is welcome all of it in. No matter if it's a car accident or whatever's happening in your life, welcome it in. It doesn't mean you're not going to have emotions around it. I'm not saying shut yourself off from your feelings. Not at all. I'm saying be present. I cried after that. My wife picked me up and I cried because it was very intense. But now it's like, thank you. Thank you, because I don't know what's on the other side, but I know there's a gift waiting for me, because it's the only reason you would give this to me, this experience, to wake me up to the truth of who I am. And I don't know about you, I'm ready. I'm ready to just rest in the peace and the stillness of who I am, because that peace and that stillness is right here, right now. And even to say I'm ready is actually not the truth, because that's as if it's not the truth right now. It's as if it's the future. I'm ready for something to happen. No, we can let go of who we are not and experience that peace and the joy and the love in God right here in this moment. You don't have to wait. It's not meant to wait. That's the future. Thank you so much.